Okay, this is going to be the hardest part to fit into your brain in the lecture, and then once we get to lists, if you get bored during this part, I forgive you. But this is the most mind-bending part, and then once we get to lists, arrays, and maps, it will be more comfortable. All right. So I'm going to try and explain in a lecture the distinction between static and non-static methods, okay? And just talk about this a bit more. So on the left here is an example of a static method. This is the first method we wrote, which was called make noise. And in that case, we were having the dog class itself, like the idea of dogs, like dog, idea, please bark, and you get bark. If instead the method is non-static, we create a specific dog, and then we tell that specific dog to bark. So two very fundamentally different philosophies. Obviously for making noise based on your size, you know, this is the right choice. And you might say, like, why do these two different choices exist? And we'll get to that in a moment, okay? But the key idea is that static methods are invoked using the class name, and instance methods, that is non-static methods, are invoked using an instance name. Static methods can't access my variables because there is no me. So static, you know, is like stasis. It's eternal. It's, you know, God, right? It doesn't have a particular set of properties. There's no particular weight. It transcends having any particular properties, and the methods can't use any data because there is no data, because it's everything. Make sense? Yeah. I would say one dog versus the idea of dogs. Not many dogs. It's the idea of dogs itself. Yeah. Any static method could be written as a non-static method. That's an interesting question. No, but not for reasons that are clear right now. Because you might have static variable. Well, no, I guess, that's a really interesting question. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. The answer might be yes, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah. Calling on the class itself is what a static method's all about. You could also maybe call them class methods if you wanted. Yeah, you wouldn't call it an object. You can technically, but don't do it. Okay. Yeah. Can you have two methods the same name, one static, one non-static? I think probably not, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, when trying to find a class, can you use public static? Oh, class method. Yes, right. Class methods use public static, right? And if you don't want it to be a class method, if you want it to be an instance method, you just don't put static. Yeah. Okay? But if it's God doing it, static. If it's not God doing it, if it's a specific person or entity or whatever, it's non-static. Oh, there you go. So you might say, why do static methods even exist? Well, one of the reasons is that some classes, you don't really want to instantiate them. So imagine that the math class, which is a thing in Java, it has a method called round, and the way you use it is you say, hey, math class, please round the number 5.6. That's better than having to instantiate a math and then call its round method, right? You could make it this way, but it's just awkward. And so often, you can have classes that have a mix of static and non-static methods. Let's do one real quick. So let's say in the class dog, we also want to be able to compare dogs. So I make a static method that turns the larger dog of two dogs, dog D1 and dog D2. And how it works is we say if D1's weight in pounds is greater than D2's weight in pounds, we return D1, otherwise we return D2. I'm going to write a comment here saying what it does. Returns the bigger dog of two dogs, D1 and D2. Okay, so it's a static method. Is it using my weight in pounds? No, it's an objective God who says, you are bigger than you, so I pick you. That's what it's supposed to do. It's not using my weight in pounds, right? It's not using, if I said system.out.println weight in pounds, right? Like this is saying, oh, you're trying to get my weight in pounds? I don't exist. I'm the idea of dogs, right? It doesn't make sense. So it won't work. The code won't even compile. Instead, this only uses somebody else's weight in pounds. So it's like knowledgeable about dogs, but has no weight in pounds of its own. How do I use such a method? Let's do dog, little dog. Okay, and then we say dog class. I want you to compare these two dogs, little dog and Maya, and give me back a dog. And then the resulting dog, let's have that dog make noise. Okay, actually, you know what? Let's make this a little more clear. Let's do dog bigger. The bigger dog is the larger little dog and Maya, and then we'll say bigger dot make noise. So which dog do you think you'll get back, little dog or Maya? Maya, and Maya will make an aru, hopefully. Let's double check. We can run it, and we should get an aru down here. Okay, probably it worked. Okay. All right, that makes sense? So what I've got here now is a class which has some static methods. It has maxDog for comparing dogs, and it has some non-static methods. It makes some sense. And this will happen when you design your own software later in the class. Sometimes you'll want some statics, sometimes you won't. And the way you can tell is, do I need to use any properties of me? And if the answer is no, it's static. Okay. Yeah, happy with that? Or anything else anybody wants to try or suggest? Okay. Oh, yeah. Can you have multiple constructors? Sure can. You can have more than one. Yep. I'm going to show you one more thing that is good to know, but only to use sparingly, which is that it is also possible to give static variables. So I can say public static string. In this case, I'm going to do binomen. And that's a variable that is true of all dogs. So this is the scientific name, if I spelled it right, familiaris. Yeah. So this is the scientific name of dogs. And now in dog launcher, I can say, hey dogs, what's your scientific name? And I'll get back some answer. Hopefully it says Canis familiaris. So it's a variable that could be accessed using the class name. And I mention this because it's occasionally useful to do this. We use it in the autograder code sometimes, but it's something to be careful with. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's where you run into trouble, especially as a novice programmer, is reassigning these. So this is what I'm going to tell you about. Static variables exist, and you should access them using the class name, not an instance name. You should say dog.binomen. Technically, Java allows you to do maya.binomen, but this is, I'd call it bad style almost always. You can also actually reassign static variables, and in project 3, maybe like 10% of you will do this at some point and run into this trouble where you're assigning static variables. And the reason it's confusing as a programmer is that it's hard to keep track of code when there's like a place that's like a variable that anybody can modify anytime you want. In general, you want your code to like pass information along narrow defined channels, and just having sort of like a working place where anybody can dump information is dangerous. So I'm just going to say for now, just trust me, that having static variables whose values change will make your software painful to maintain. That is, it becomes mentally hard to keep track of who can do something because anybody can set or read some variable. And if you want, you can read some more here. Yeah. Yeah, you absolutely could. So for example, after making noise, it's possible to reassign weight in pounds elsewhere. That's allowed in Java. So I could do like weight in pounds equals 2. So after aruing, you become smaller. Yeah. Oh, where? Oh, yeah, yeah. And you can also do this as well. That's allowed as 2. Well, but I don't teach it in the class, but it's a thing you can do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would say yes. If you don't need to use any of your properties, static's probably the right idea. Yeah. Okay. All right. So as noted, a class can have a mix of static and non-static members. And by the way, a member is either a variable, like weight in pounds, or it's a function. Okay. Which I didn't say yet, yes. Static methods you access using a class name, like dog.binomen or dog.maxdog. And then non-static members, you cannot invoke them using the class name. Like I could never say dog.makeNoise because there is no specific dog to be making noise in this case. And then static methods, they can use instance variables. It's allowed to use weight in pounds, you have to be looking at a specific dog. Okay, and that's that. I should note one more thing, since I have a minute, is that you can also, oh, right. Someone asked earlier, can you have a method that has the same name as a static method that's non-static? Yeah, I sure can. Okay, I'm going to show you. I could technically have another maxDog method here that takes another dog. And, like, what do you think this function's supposed to do? Like, since it's non-static. So I'm saying maxDog some other dog. Someone give me a sense of, like, what you think this function's supposed to do, just based on what I put up here so far. Yeah, compare other dog to me and return the larger. So I'll just show you that this is possible too. I'll say other dog, okay? How would I do that? Well, I could say if weight in pounds is greater than other dog dot weight in pounds, then return something. What do you think I should return though? Yeah, this. In like Python, it would look like that, right? Return self. In Java, it would be return this. Otherwise, return other dog. So this is an example of when you actually need to have the keyword this. Okay? How would you call that method? Like, how would I use the non-static method to compare little dog and Maya? I'm gonna delete all this stuff. So how would I use the, use the non-static max dog. And if you're watching the webcast, you can pause the video right now and think about it. Okay, what do you think? Yeah? Yeah, Maya.maxDog, little dog. Or I could do little dog.maxDog Maya, and it doesn't matter which order I do it in. Either's fine. Okay? And that would have the same effect. So all three of these function calls do the same thing. Okay. So thanks for the question. I realized I actually did know the answer, and it was yes, you're totally allowed to have two functions with the same name. All right, any other thoughts about this? Okay, and again, if I've lost you, it's like, what have I gotten myself into? I think this is like an annoying topic, but a useful one at the beginning, and we'll get into a richer topic in just a moment. Yeah. Yes, there is function overloading, and I'll describe what that is in about 4 lectures.